if I don't go, who else is going to complain about all the things that are wrong? No, I'm just kidding.
2024 Mr. Olympia in Las Vegas. Will Dave Palumbo be going back to the Olympia?
Yeah. Where's that? The Olympia is going to be in Vegas.
In Vegas at the Resorts World. So I think if not one of the newest hotel complex on the Strip.
Wow.
I mean, if you've ever seen pictures of this thing, it's like something out of a movie. I mean, we're talking like next level world class, and I'll have to look more into it, but I think there was a mention about how there's like some sort of like an underground corridor that goes from the hotel to the Las Vegas Convention Center where the expo is. So if that's the case, then I mean, we're talking about a new level of convenience. But yeah, I've heard in terms of like luxuries and amenities, this is truly like world class.
Yeah, like I said, I really the reason I had stopped going to shows is there was that little bit of COVID hiccup we had there, but my kids were really young, and so they weren't all in school, so it was hard, So now with the kids in school and everything like that, and my wife can kind of handle them better. She can put them all in the car together. It's not like we have a baby, anymore. It's a lot easier. So yeah, I'll be going next year for sure, unless God forbid, there's something else hits, that prevents that. But I would definitely like to go back to Vegas and see the show there, especially if it's going to be in a new theater and everything like that. And who else? If I don't go, who else is going to complain about all the things that are wrong? No, I'm just kidding. You know what? I wanted to and I'm going to do a rant on this too, but I wanted to make a statement. When we go to these shows, I try to be everyone's eyes, ears, and and five senses, so to speak. And this was the best Olympia I've ever been to in terms of how it was set up. And I haven't been to the Olympia in a couple of years, but this is the best one I've ever been to in the history. I mean, the stage looked amazing. The setup was great. The way we were treated was right as far as press go. The athletes loved it. I felt the different venues for the Meet the Olympians, the press conference, the expo, and then the actual, show itself on the main stage was amazingly set up. It was professional. I felt like I was at the Academy Awards. So in that sense, I was really impressed with what went on. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to point out things that can use improvement. So, you can see me as a pain in the neck, or, maybe they think it's not a negative thing. I'm the press. I'm there to critique the show. And there wasn't a lot to negatively critique. There was a couple of hiccups. I think we had the one hiccup, which was the athletes went on very late on Friday night, which I think affected their conditioning. And you know what? Even though none of the athletes are really voicing it very much, they all came up to me and said they agreed with me. And I know why they're not voicing, because they don't want to start trouble and they don't want anyone to hold it against them. And that's fine. And I would never even out the names of the people who told me that. But I would say 90% of the people agree with me on that. And it's not a shot at the promoters, it's just hey, maybe we can fix this for next year type of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. I would want constructive criticism if I'm running a show, but the majority of the show was phenomenal. And I'll tell you something, the VIP gala afterwards, which I very rarely go to, I went there because I wanted to meet old friends, was amazing. The food was delicious. The people were great. Everyone was, I was sitting at the same table as Bob Ciccarello and eating with him, breaking bread. So how much better does it get than that? So I loved the show. It was great, but there were a couple little things that I think can be reclarified and fixed going into next year, especially because it's going to be in Vegas, which is 3 hours earlier there. I'd hate to see the fans have to watch, the night show at 3 a.m. again. So I'm sure these are little things that can be fixed. And I'll continue to voice my approval and disapproval to the chagrin of other people who maybe don't want to hear it. But I know the fans want to hear it. I know, the competitors like to hear it. And that's what I do. And that's what we do here at RXMuscle. We've always done it. I'm not going to have a gag order on me. And, in the past, I remember John Romano once said that the aisles were too narrow at the Olympia Expo, and we lost press passes and access to next year. This was before, obviously, the current, Dan and Jake were in here, but when AMI owned it, and then Robin Chang ran it, and people took things so personally, but you can't take it personally. I mean, that's what, that's how things get better. You critique it, and then you let these people think about it and percolate it for the next year. And hopefully next year it's going to be that much better. And that's what makes the show evolve. I mean, if people don't like the lighting, maybe the lighting was too extravagant, we tamed it back for the prejudging a little bit so that the athletes can be showcased under better lighting. This is just good constructive criticism that if I didn't point that out, or Lee Priest didn't point that out, or whoever points it out, we wouldn't be doing our job. That's our job. Our job is to say how great the show is, but it's also to say what could be fixed and made better the following year. And I think by and far, every year it's gotten better and better, especially since Jake and Dan have been running the show. It's only gotten better. And you know what? It was a truly enjoyable on my part to go to the show for the first time ever. The Arnold has always been a pleasure because they've always been really, but the Olympia has always had a history, especially when Weider owned it, when AMI owned it, of being exclusionary. In other words, it was like you almost had to feel like, like I'm bothering these people being there. Like you had to be so grateful that they even let you in the door. I mean, you shouldn't feel like that as press. I mean, I've been going to these shows for 30 years already. I mean, I should feel like, as the press, welcome. You want the press to go to the show because you want them to enjoy themselves and tell everyone how great it is, and so that people come back next year, and that's just the way a good businessman works. And that's why Dan is so intelligent and smart, because he knows how to make people happy. And that's a very good quality he's got. So I'm looking forward to going next year. I probably should book my rooms now so I don't scramble at the last minute. But I think look, I'm sure Jake could hold it in a cheaper place. Holding it in the newest hotel, is certainly not a cheap way to go. So you can't say anything about Jake in terms of trying to save money. He tries to make the biggest, most spectacular show that he can put out there. And it shows, whereas in the past, they shoved that Olympia in the Orleans hotel because it was cheap. They probably got the hotel super cheap. And you know what? It looked like we were in some kind of back alley casino, holding this thing back in the old days. It was terrible. It was functional, but it wasn't spectacular. Now we're at spectacular. And so I think that if we can continue on this level, it's only going to get better and better. And that's my opinion on this.